VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It is an acronym, first used in 1987 based on the leadership theories of Warren G. Bennis and Bert Nonnis. We live in a world that's constantly changing, becoming more unstable each day, where changes, big and small, are becoming more unpredictable, and they're getting more and more dramatic, and happening faster and faster. It's becoming more difficult to anticipate events, or predict how they'll unfold. Historical forecasts and past experiences are losing their relevance, and are rarely applicable as a basis for predicting the shape of things to come. Our modern world is more complex than ever. Problems and their repercussions are more multi-layered, harder to understand. The different layers intermingle, making it impossible to get an overview of how things are related. Decisions are reduced to a tangled mesh of reaction and counter-reaction, and choosing the single correct path is almost impossible. One size fits all, and best practice, have been relegated to yesterday. Not everything is black and white, gray is also an option. The demands on modern organizations are more contradictory and paradoxical than ever, challenging our personal value systems to the core. In a world where the what takes a back seat to the why and the how, making decisions requires courage, awareness, and a willingness to make mistakes. Everything has to return to the learning circle of learn, unlearn and relearn. Leadership in the VUCA world, therefore, should be taken as an educational process, and the organization should extend its function to a proper learning organization. Every leader should think of him or herself as a student, not a teacher. Simon Sinek, 2019, says, "Leadership is an education." And the best leaders think of themselves as students, not the teachers. Regardless of the leadership level or status, leaders should continuously learn and practice a lifelong learning attitude. Their current leadership status and credentials should not stop them from learning. John Donahue, Nike CEO, once said, "Great leaders are never too proud to learn." As leaders continuously embark on the learning process, they should also share their learning experience, and provide the followers and future successors with proper learning opportunities. The best way to learn and share the learning experience is to face the problems and challenges. Professor Warren G. Bennis, founding chairman of the Leadership Institute, the University of Southern California, and co-founder of the VUCA theory, in his book, On Becoming a Leader, wrote, "Leaders learn by leading, and they learn best by leading in the face of obstacles. As weather shapes mountains, problems shape leaders." Learning through problems, or problem-based learning, PBL, in the VUCA world, requires leaders to understand the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity of the problems, and be able to present them properly to the followers. Not only that, but they should also be able to facilitate and coach them in a proper inquiry process, so everyone, including the leaders, will be able to learn through and master the essential skills to face the current and future challenges. Leaders in the VUCA world are the problem-based leaders, the persistent practitioners of problem-based learning, PBL. As problem-based leaders, they should only use real-world problems in their leadership and organizational learning process. Real-world problems, according to Barrows and Linda, 2007, are central to the PBL process, as they stimulate learners to determine what it is they need to learn, and provide both an anchor and organizer for learning. Having identified the real-world problems, leaders then should redesign them into authentic problems to be presented to the followers and future successors, to collaboratively start the problem-based leadership learning process. This task is easier said than done. Apart from the authenticity of the problem, leaders should also consider other crucial aspects, including the degree of content focus, the context, and the process of learning. Above all, the problem should engage the followers and future successors, and motivate them to learn through and solve it as their own problem. By working with the problem, the leaders, and the followers will activate and apply their prior knowledge and skills. As they attempt to solve the problem, they will realize and understand the additional knowledge and skills needed to fill the gap between their prior knowledge and the intended learning outcomes and solution. According to Barrows and Linda, 2007, the design of PBL problems should have these characteristics. 1. Authentic. 2. Ill-structured. 3. Promote free inquiry. 4. Engaging and stimulating, and 5. Specifying the learner's role. These characteristics represent the frequent and high-impact problems that occur in the workplace and the real-world setting. Problems are at the heart of the Transformational Leadership Model Canvas, TLMC. They function as a content and knowledge organizer, learning environment contextualizer, thinking and reasoning stimulator, and learning motivator. The 3C3R problem design model is a systematic method, developed by Professor Y. Hung, 2006, specifically designed to guide instructional designers and educators to design effective PBL problems for all levels of learners. In the case of Transformational Leadership Model Canvas, this model could be applied by leaders to design the VUCA real-world problems into an authentic TLMC problem. The 3C3R problem design model is applied in TLMC to maximize the attainment of the learning outcomes, especially in terms of the content and the process of learning, through a structured and comprehensive problem-solving approach. This problem design model consists of two classes of components: core components and processing components. The core components are used to support learning content and concept, whereas the processing components are concerned with the learner's cognitive processes and problem-solving skills. The core components of the 3C3R model, the content, the context, and the connection, are primarily concerned with the issues of appropriateness and sufficiency of content knowledge, knowledge contextualization, and knowledge integration. Several aspects of the content component must be taken into consideration. 1. Aligning with organizational goals and objectives. 2. Scope of problems, to conduct task analyses, such as using learning hierarchy analysis, and 3. To design TLMC problems with appropriate depth, complexity, and ill-structuredness. In considering the context component of TLMC problems, contextual validity, degree of contextualization, and learner's motivation, three important design elements that need to be taken into consideration. 1. Contextual validity. 2. Degree of contextualization, and 3. Learner's motivation. To solve ill-structured problems effectively, the problem solvers not only have to possess a rich repertoire of necessary knowledge, but they also must interlink these diverse sources and knowledge into an effective knowledge-based network, and be able to cross-reference related concepts. The connection component functions to interweave the concepts and information within the conceptual framework and content into contexts. To ensure the attainment of the desired learning outcomes in the course of the TLMC learning process, another class of components in the 3C3R model, processing components, is designed to facilitate mindful and meaningful engagement. The processing components, which include researching, reasoning, and reflecting, are the dynamic elements in relation to the static core components in the 3C3R model. The functions of these dynamic processing components are twofold. First, to serve as an activator, that is, to guide the learners to take advantage of the design of the core components. Second, processing components function as a calibration system to 1. Guide learners' learning toward the intended learning goals, 2. Adjust the level of cognitive processing required during the course of TLMC, in accordance with the cognitive readiness of the learners, and 3. Alleviate the issue of learners' initial unfamiliarity and discomfort with the TLMC. The first stage of the problem-solving process is understanding the problem, also termed as problem space construction. The main task in this stage is researching necessary information within the domain, as preparation for the next stage of the problem-solving process. Learners may deviate from the intended content area if they are not directed properly, because ill-structured problems are naturally open to interpretations. Learners should be aware and properly facilitated towards the goals and context specifications. Reasoning is the processing component that promotes the application of knowledge acquired from researching related information and the development of the learner's problem-solving skills. By being required to analyze information and generate and test hypotheses and solutions to the problems, the learners put their knowledge into practice instead of only memorizing it. During this process, problem solvers engage in cognitive activities that enable them to solve the problem. This includes 1. Analyzing the nature of all the variables and the interrelationships among them. 2. Linking newly acquired knowledge with existing knowledge and restructuring their domain knowledge base. 3. Reasoning causally to understand the intercausal relationships among the variables and the underlying mechanisms. 4. Reasoning logically to generate and test hypotheses, as well as identify possible solutions and/or eliminate implausible solutions. By engaging in these cognitive activities, the problem solvers process the somewhat raw knowledge into meaningful, applicable, and conceptually integrated knowledge. In essence, the reasoning process enables problem solvers to deepen and expand their conceptual understanding. Researching and reasoning processes occur simultaneously and reiteratively, and they complement each other in enabling an effective and efficient problem-solving process. Thus, these two processing components should be considered simultaneously as a corresponding learning process. In the model of PBL proposed by Barrows and Myers, knowledge abstraction, summary, and self-evaluation are three main metacognitive activities designed to help learners achieve optimal learning outcomes. By reflecting on the knowledge they have constructed throughout the problem-solving process, learners have an opportunity to organize and integrate their knowledge into a more systematic conceptual framework. Reflecting involves the cognitive activities of abstracting, summarizing, and organizing knowledge to enhance learners' conceptual integration and retention of the topic under study. Through self-evaluation of their problem-solving strategies, and exploring and examining alternative hypotheses and solutions that they might have missed, learners can improve their problem-solving and learning skills in these metacognitive processes. These reflection activities can extend learners' learning by helping them discover information, concepts, and areas that they can explore further, as well as enhance their ability to transfer knowledge to different contexts. The reflecting component acts as a built-in metacognitive guide in TLMC problems. This component optimizes the TLMC learning process by ensuring the maximum effects of other components in the TLMC problems. A complete TLMC framework consists of the VOPs components, activating components, and the FacTILA inquiry approach components, empowering components. The VOPs consists of three blocks: the vision, the outcomes, and the problem scenario. They are the first segment of TLMC that requires the leader's problem design skills, using the 3C3R model. Leaders who intended to use the TLMC in their leadership learning and facilitating the learning in the organization should be able to design the VOPs components by mastering the skills of 1. articulating the organization's vision, 2, identifying the outcomes of the learning process, and 3, designing problem scenarios, using the 3C3R problem design model. VOPs components are both the basics and triggers for the learning process. The vision and outcomes are the basic components that guiding the direction of the learning process, whereas the problem scenario triggers and activates the learning to take place in an active and proactive way. Vision. In a real situation, the leader should reassign and re-articulate the organization or group vision to the group members. It might be the whole vision of the organization, or part of it, that is directly connected to the problem scenario. The lesson behind this block is to recap and enlighten the leaders and followers on the organization's highest purpose. In a learning simulation and training, the group leader should organize a discussion session to decide on the group's shared vision based on the training goals. They could use the organization's vision as a guide. Leadership coaches and facilitators should facilitate and guide this process. Outcomes. In a real situation, the leader should be able to identify and list down the intended learning outcomes expected from this problem-solving session. Members are encouraged to ask for further clarification about the expected outcomes. The lesson behind this block is to develop a clear mission and direction throughout the problem-solving process, using the TLMC. In a learning simulation and training, the group should discuss and identify the key learning outcomes they intended to achieve. Leadership coaches and facilitators should facilitate and guide this process. Problem scenario. In a real situation, a real-world problem facing by a leader, redesigned into an authentic problem, using the 3C3R model, and presented to a group of leaders within the leadership circle. The problem should be complex and ill-structured, but not wicked. The purpose of this block is to trigger the learning process through higher-order thinking skills activities. In a learning simulation and training, the group will select the most relevant real-world problems, redesign them to authentic problem scenarios, under the guidance of leadership coaches and facilitators. They will learn how to pilot the problem scenarios before using them for the inquiry process. The problem scenario is the result of the problem design or redesigning process, and it is one of the main blocks in the TLMC. This block could only be properly filled by the leaders who had mastered the skills of designing or redesigning the problem scenarios from real-world problems to authentic problems. For more information on the TLMC, please watch other related videos in the Transformational Leadership Model Canvas playlist, available on this YouTube channel. For resources on PBL problem design and 3C3R model, please click the links provided in the video description below.